especially if you work in HR. And that means caring about your employees, not just as professionals, but as people. And that's exactly what today's guest does for her job. Me, I'm Kate Noel, head of people operations here at Morning Brew Inc, as well as the host of People Person. At our recent HR Brew Summit in New York City, I sat down with Ava Mehta, who is the head of life event services at Bank of America, and we talked about whether it's a loss in life, a natural disaster, or a health matter, how Ava tells us what it takes to help your employees through all of their life's unexpected adventures, and done in a way that shows that you're not just giving them a check, but most importantly, you're giving a damn. What's up, you guys? It's your girl, Kate Noel, head of people operations here at Morning Brew Inc. And it is my absolute pleasure to have a pretty good and interesting conversation with my boo, who is with us today. We have here
Ava Mehta.
Ava, do you know who you are? You gotta stand up strong and say it. Ava, come on now. You that girl. This is
Ava Mehta.
Okay. And what is it that you do, Ava?
I run our life event services team at Bank of America.
Okay. So I want you to know, when I first saw that title, I didn't have a single idea what that actually meant.
I'm sure a lot of people don't.
And so let's make sure we can fix that today.
Of course.
What is it that you do? What's the day-to-day life of it? How did that even come to fruition even? I want you to explain what it is that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So Life Event Services is a team within Bank of America within our Global Human Resources department. And we're a team of about 150 specialized consultants. And really what we do is help our teammates in the moments that matter, really, outside of work. So you think about wildfires, natural disasters, survivor support, and just really the essence of it is we want people to have long careers. Things happen. Right. And we want to be a resource for our teammates because it's gone are the days where you separate life, what's happening outside of the workplace with what's happening inside the workplace. And we just want to be that conduit and that safe space for our teammates to come to if they need support in anything that's happening in their life.
I know People Person listeners aren't a monolith. You each have different areas you want to grow in and unique challenges you're facing at work. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Intuit QuickBooks. They just launched QuickBooks Workforce, which was made to help you get past different HR hurdles. Struggling with hiring and onboarding hurdles? QuickBooks Workforce can help you automate it into one smooth flow. Looking for ways to keep your team on track? QuickBooks Workforce can help you with location-based clock-ins for your team and approvals for you. Trying to make payroll less of a pain? QuickBooks Workforce lets you set up auto payroll to make payday and payroll taxes simpler. Get support clearing the obstacles you're facing. Head to quickbooks.com/workforce to get started. That's quickbooks.com/workforce. That is amazing. No, I have never heard of that, at least in a very corporate way.
Yeah.
So, has this always existed? Is this a long-standing department within the HR space with Bank of America, or is this like a toddler, a baby? What stage are we in right now?
I think we're in a kid stage right now. So we've been around. We're in school. We're fully in elementary school. We've been around for about 10 years, and really how it got started is we noticed that our employees would come to us and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And they weren't asking for special treatment. They didn't want anything new. They just wanted help on how to navigate it. And sometimes they just needed an ear to listen to from that end. And we're obviously a really big company. We have access to a lot of benefits and a lot of resources. And really what better of a way to kind of conduit the two of those together. We had some really senior leaders who took heart in that and really listened to what people were saying and thought about, why don't we have a dedicated team that's really meant to help these teammates as they navigate these moments that matter in their lives. And, there's a lot of great business reasons behind it, which is amazing. But the personal reasons are we just want people to feel taken care of. Our talent is our biggest asset in the company, as we all know, as HR professionals. Yeah. And really, if you have talent that feels like their company cares for them in this crazy world, they're going to stick around. They're going to be more loyal. They're going to want to be more engaged. And we really see that as well, too, in terms of how we help. Gosh, I respect that so much. What are some examples of, the life stuff that your team possibly works on? Yeah, so, you can think about major critical events. So you think about our LA wildfires that happened about, so our team was really instrumental from the very beginning. So as areas were getting evacuated, really, our teammate was on the line with their teams, helping them, whether it's finding housing, where am I going to go? I'm looking out the window, seeing my entire life be turned upside down.
My goodness.
So the immediate needs around that, and then kind of more into the longer term needs. We partnered with an outside consulting company that really helped them with some of the rebuild efforts, right? And as you're probably aware, Bank of America invested in a lot in the LA growth post the fires, and we were really pivotal in how we help our teammates through that as well too. Because again, these moments are not just a moment, it's a whole life that's been shifted upside down. So it could be major critical events, think wildfires, think hurricanes. We did a lot with the hurricanes, unfortunately shootings, etc., or just individual, right? Just like the day-to-day of my house caught on fire, right? Or I'm dealing with a terminal illness in a family member, or unfortunately a loved one passed away, or a teammate passed away. And then we also help our teammates, through retirement, right? That's a major life moment of how do you exit the company in a meaningful and productive way from that end. So really, it's kind of like the life cycle of what we all go through, right? From that perspective, and we're here to sort of help them kind of navigate all of that.
There is so much respect for that, Ava, only because it's so easy for an organization to just, you think of life cycle, you're just thinking, whoa, what's their onboarding?
Yeah.
They've passed the interview process,
right.
maybe a few reviews in the middle, and then if you decide to leave, then that's on your accord, but that's really what it is. But the fact that the life cycle is truly being looked at of the life cycle of an employee, it's of course, I'm sure your engagement scores are through the roof.
We'd like to think so, but it really is a differentiator, and I think we're a big company, right?
Yeah.
And so to feel like someone cares about you and your individual situation goes a long way, right? And I think that really does help. And, managers are on board. We'll help managers navigate that too, because even as a manager, it's hard. I don't know what to do. That's an uncomfortable conversation.
Oh, so you coach managers as well?
We'll coach managers. We'll sort of say to the manager, tell us what's happening. We'll take it from there, and we'll tell you what you need to do as well too to support your teammates. Because again, this isn't stuff that people deal with every single day, so they don't know. It's uncomfortable, it's hard, and we're there to help them from that end.
As an HR person listening to this and feeling my heartstrings being pulled by this conversation, as you can really imagine, how does one even get into something like that? What's the work or the background I would need in order for myself to be considered can I do the work of community service corporately in the workplace?
No, it's a great question, and what I'll say is, I will say the number one trait is empathy. We can teach you how to do everything else. But our team is made up of all sorts of professionals. So we have social workers. We have people who were involved in social services in their past life. We have HR professionals, right, that have sort of said, this is what I want to do next. We have communication professionals. So it's a really big gamut of what they want to do. Me, myself, I've spent my career in HR in different HR roles. But really that empathy piece of it, and I want to help people, is kind of what I would say is the core to what we do. And then being practical and contemporary, because everything is changing. This is an ever dynamic world, as we all know, right? And being able to really figure out what's going on, what's the pulse, what do our teammates need is really important from that perspective.
I know every company has empathy as a company core value.
Yeah.
It's always there with curiosity, bias to action. Those are ours. But anyway, how do you interview for that though, or how do you test for that, right? Because as much as people would like to think that empathy is important, based on what you're sharing with me about the day-to-day stuff and what you're working with, that's integral to the success of not just your team, but to the impact that people are having in their lives and coming to you guys to be like, hey, I need you. I need this help right now. So if you're going through the conversations of seeing who you can add to your team or seeing how they show up day to day as an employee, how do you measure empathy? How's that a method?
Well, it's a great question, and I wish I had the right answer, because I think we'd all be doing something. But I would say, you really can pick up on it in terms of how people react in different situations, right? And I mean, look, it's a lot. I mean, this team does Herculean work. Seriously. It's a lot, and they really do. My number one thing is always take care of yourselves first, right? Put your oxygen mask on first. But I think, we have people who seek this work out, right? They've heard enough about it from a company perspective. We have a lot of teammates who we've supported and who've come back and said, I really want to do this in my next career path from that end, because they kind of see the value that we provide from that perspective. So there isn't a magic way to really say, wow, this person's empathetic, this person isn't. But I think you can kind of suss that out through various techniques, and kind of how they're showing up in these sorts of situations really is a calling, from that end.
It really is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in situations like this, I can imagine how it's natural for people to be drawn to you and your team to say like, hey, I need help, and for it to not seem so scary. It could probably be because the situation is just so dire that it's like, hey, I just need the resources.
Yeah.
But as a tip to us HR folks who may be outside of this very specific field, what is something that we can take into consideration when we want to provide resources, but we have this narrative sometimes that HR is like this big scary thing, or like you don't want HR knowing your business and stuff like that. Like, what are some quick tips you can probably give to us to be mindful of that can help us be the help that someone needs?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I would say really it's listening. Listen to your employees. They'll tell you what they need to from that end. We have a saying on our team is we meet people where they are, right? And so you meet people where they are. And then again, like everything we do as HR professionals, the relationships really matter, right? Like it's never a one and done conversation. These are ongoing conversations really from a relationship perspective and building the trust. I mean, trust is integral in what we do from that end. And I think all of us as HR professionals continue to work through that from that end, but really meeting people kind of where they are at that moment and kind of giving them what they need and then sort of backing away and then coming back again, I think is really sort of what we do from that end. But having an ear to understand, I always say if someone's having a performance issue and they've been a long-standing good performer, something else might be going on. So ask the question. I think sometimes people just want to be asked, right, from that end, and then they'll share what they want to share. But notice traits, notice signals, notice signs of kind of where people are, and you'll probably get more than you think you would be from that end.
Okay, so maybe not get so caught up in being so corporate.
Yeah.
But really be here for like the fullness of a person in your organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some ways to signal that? Like, how can I be proactive with that? For me, for example, I'm a lot in the best way possible. In the best way possible. Thank you. But for me, it's like the way that I like for people to feel like I'm genuinely there for them and wanting to be a resource is like, for example, like I don't code switch, for example, or like the way I dress or the way I speak or the way I show up authentically to myself, and just hope that people can trust that my experience will speak for itself. But even before the problem arises, I have shown to you that I am a very whole person.
Right.
And I don't take my seat for granted as a leader as well. So I know that, me visually being a certain type of person can speak to that as well. I wonder if that's been a little bit of your experience being in the role that you're in and being in the space that you operate in every day.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what you said of being authentic is really important, right? Just be yourself, be authentic, listen. I think we need to listen more than we talk.
Are people not listening to you, Ava? Are they not listening to us? Like, what is going on?
I just think that there's always a tendency to solve, right? And I think some of it is just listening to kind of, like I said, where people are, what they need from that end. That's always been beneficial from that perspective, and establish trust. I think as a company, we sort of establish that trust along the way. So God forbid when these moments happen, they trust us to come and help them from that perspective. But that doesn't happen overnight. I mean, day one, someone's not going to come and tell their company what they're going through, right? That takes a while to get there. And word of mouth is the best resource, right?
From
that referrals, right? Like, oh my gosh, I helped you. Oh my, can you believe what they did for me? Okay, well, let me ask them to help them from that perspective. So that really helps as well too from that end.
Okay, I gotta respect it. Okay, so give us a few ideas possibly for like maybe small to medium things that are easy enough to implement quickly that would have a positive or significant impact on company culture. Yeah. So like building the space that you mentioned that like people can feel good about like raising their hand possibly if something goes down or if not.
Yeah. Well, I would say, I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the world, right? Just
that is saying it lightly.
Ask the question. We always say there's probably somebody impacted by what just happened, right? And I think just really leading with that, outside of kind of the four walls of your company really helps from that perspective, right? So there was, God forbid, a terrible storm. Who would be in that region that might be impacted from our employee base? Can we check in with that person to see if they're okay? What resources do they need to kind of get themselves up and running? Or just even that, half the time it's like someone just to talk to and sort of say, I understand what you're going through from that perspective. I think that's number one. I think we talked about sort of establishing trust and being authentic from that perspective. I think most companies have access to a lot of great benefits, right? From that perspective, and figuring out how to package those benefits and those resources in order to help your teammates. I think a lot of times what we're helping teammates do is navigate what already exists within our four walls of the company. They just don't know how to access it, or they've been through such a traumatic event. The last thing they want to do is go figure out, on the website where to go for XYZ. And so we're that just conduit from that end. And I always say, they've been through a traumatic situation. We're just helping this one step get easier from that perspective. That's all we can do from that end.
Okay, I respect that. And speaking to the first point, I'm happy to use myself as a case study. It better be a safe space up in here. But for example, Morning Brew is fairly small in size. And so if something like that were to happen, if there was like a flood or anything like that, is it okay for me as an HR leader to, reach out to the person directly knowing that they're in the region, or should I make it more like a general Slack message like, hey, if anyone's, affected, or do I make it a corporate comms email? Like, what would you think would be like the right thing to do? Because up until this point, y'all, I've just been hitting them up directly. Hopefully they got Wi-Fi and they can get the message like, hey, noticed on the news that this is happening. But like, is that too much of a touch, or like, should I take a step back a little bit? Like, what should that look like?
I think it depends on the culture. I do believe in the personalized touches. I think that's also where you can rely on the managers, right? Because your manager should know you day to day and understand what's going on from that perspective. So there are some times where we'll sort of say to the manager, hey, Ava was in this market. Is she okay? Have you heard from her? Does she need any resources? Versus so I think it just kind of, we weave and bob like everyone from that perspective. So I think we need to kind of figure that out from that end. But I do think it's okay. I think people want to know that you care, and never take it personally if someone doesn't respond back, right? Sure. There's so much on their plates, but just knowing that someone was there to care and my company cared about me goes a long way.
Yeah, I think HR kind of falls into that a lot, of knowing like people may ask for something and then when you give it, it doesn't get utilized. But the point of the matter is, you offer it.
You offer it.
Okay.
You offer it, and you meet them where they are.
Yeah. I love that.
That's
okay.
all. Yeah.
Return that into merch. HR is expected to do a lot, and sometimes the peopleness of it all gets forgotten. In plain terms, how can HR pros be better about giving a damn about their employees? Like, even outside of like the crisis management, Olivia Pope of it all is something that's kind of like where the world is. But outside of that, how can we show employees that we care, but also that it's not performative? Because I feel like that could also be something that kind of goes on the wrong end of things, where it just feels like you're just trying to check off a box.
Yeah.
What are the things formally that as an HR person I can do to show that?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's, again, being authentic. Okay. I think we don't enter this field if we don't care about people. Right.
That's
so
the
I
idea.
think, we would hope. I think it's being authentic. I think it's being truthful. I think it's building the relationships. I think that's really important. And don't underestimate the employee acknowledgement, the recognition messages. Those do go a long way. I know sometimes we can get bogged down in that, but that does go a long way. And I think that shows people that, there's a company around me that cares about me and myself, right? From that perspective, from that end. I also think really a lot of it comes down to, we've talked about the manager, right? And the manager really showing up and caring about the individual and not just the work that's on hand, but actually the person and how they're doing, I think goes a long way as well too, from that end.
Okay, so Ava, you've been doing HR for how long?
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this specifically for how long?
I've been with the bank for about 17 years. I've been in this role for about 4.
So 17 plus 4, a lot of time.
Yeah.
What is something that in doing this work that you used to believe in that you don't believe in anymore, and why?
Yeah, I think kind of growing up, I sort of felt like if the problems were home problems, they have to stay at home. And you don't bring that to work, right? And so I think I've since changed. I think the pandemic definitely changed that when we all started working out of our living rooms and our bedrooms. And
living room was a grace. There was one time I took an all hands meeting in the bathroom. When I tell you the acoustics were insane, granted it was like right in front of the camera, but
closets, wherever wherever you got a quiet place to work from. I think that sort of went out the window, right? And I think the merging of our two lives has become something that I've seen the evolution of, and me personally, kind of from that perspective, because it is about bringing your whole self to work, and all of that is part of that, from that end.
Well, Ava, thank you for showing up as your authentic self for this conversation. The work you do, it is commendable. And obviously when people are going through things, the last thing they want to do is have this experience. But what a blessing it is to know that at least in the place that they work, like places like Bank of America, they got people who are experienced and can help them navigate that transition.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Sending tons of love and appreciation over to Ava for joining us today. And to you, if you have any suggestions of ways you've improved your employee's life outside of the office, you can share them here with us at peopleperson@morningbrew.com, and we'll be sure to see you next time.